Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Ask the Expert session for Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare. We've got a half hour today, and what we're going to do is give you an opportunity really to talk to all the technical folks across the Microsoft portfolio and ask any questions you have about the new technology coming out, about Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare, how you want to integrate it. It's really an open session today. We've got a whole host of folks here that are able to ask questions. We're going to pull some of them into the live chat here, and you still have an opportunity as well to ask questions in the chat window, and we have folks that are on board that will answer those in real time as well. As you do that, you can post through your own name, you can post anonymously, it's up to you. If someone's already asked a question you're interested in, give us a quick thumbs up so we know to rise that one to the top and we can address that more deeply for you. And once we're done with the session, of course, today, we will provide additional resources. I will let you know this session is being recorded, so you don't have to record it yourself. We will make sure it's distributed to everyone that attended Ignite today. And just a simple reminder that we do appreciate everybody showing professionalism and respect for everyone attending the session today under the Microsoft Code of Conduct. So with that, my name is Heather Cartwright. I am the General Manager for our Health, Cloud, and Data team, bringing you the healthcare technology that you see today, along with our speaker today for Ask the Expert, Paul Smolke. He's our Director of Business Strategy for Healthcare. And our expert panel, we have Jen Roth, who is our Director of Healthcare Product Marketing, Vijay Musavate, who is our Senior Director for Healthcare, Randy Nail, who's our Director from the field of US Healthcare Technology Strategy and Architecture. We also have Gregory Lisiak, who is our Digital Advisor for Healthcare, Evan Westenberger from our Teams Group, who's our Senior PM, and Edgar Wilson, who is our Principal PM for Healthcare. So just a whole host of people that can answer really anything that you need to know as you deploy Microsoft Healthcare in your ecosystem. So with that, I'm actually going to kick us off today with one question that came up quite a bit during our feature session, and it's an important one about interoperability with the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare and your EHR systems. The great thing about Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare is that its foundation is built on the FAST Healthcare Interoperability Resource, which is the open source standard called FHIR. And it's really a global standard that is actually interoperable with almost every EHR system. FHIR is becoming the de facto exchange for healthcare, which means when you want to integrate with any EHR system, certainly the big ones that people ask about, Epic and Cerner and Allscripts, but also smaller EHR systems, they are all migrating to ingest and read data in FHIR and expand write capabilities as well. And so when you're working with Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare, you're using FHIR APIs, and that gives you integration and streamlines interoperability with your EHRs. So it makes it easier for you to light up this technology. With that, another question that also came up, and I'm going to turn this over to Paul to talk a little bit about the languages that Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare is available in. Paul, do you want to walk us through that today?
Helps if I get off mute. Yes, thanks, Heather. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. We do get a lot of questions around language, and when we first introduced the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare back in October, it was only available in English. And so with our update in April, we're actually going to add 8 new languages. And those languages are French, German, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, Japanese, simplified Chinese, and Korean. And then also, it's interesting because when we deal, especially in healthcare in a regulated industry, where we deploy in regions is also super important for our customers and our partners. And so from a Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare perspective, as far as deployment, it's going to be in North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Japan, Great Britain, and Germany are going to be the regions where we're deploying next. And so as we continue to roll out, hopefully we'll have more regions and more languages, but I think going from English and adding an additional 8 languages in April is a pretty big step for us. So hopefully that's going to help out.
Fantastic. That's great to hear, Paul. I know the one thing that's exciting about it is it's expanding around the world. We're seeing an expansion in languages and usage, so it's great to see.
Yeah.
One question that also comes up, I know from the integration of Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare and the Dynamics 365 ecosystem that we have. I'm actually going to have Edgar answer a few questions for us regarding how does it tie into the Microsoft 365 platform that people are, and the Dynamics platform that people are already using today?
Yeah, great question. So getting a bit of an echo. So essentially what we're doing is persisting that data within Azure ATE-FS188 and leveraging what's known as the Fire Sync agent in order to stream data from Azure API for Fire into Dataverse. So ultimately, that's how we're bringing data in, and also that sync agent allows for writebacks to Azure API for Fire as well. So ultimately, that's how we're bringing data in. If any updates take place, we're then pushing that back to Azure API for Fire, which in turn can go back into the EMR. So at a high level, that is essentially how we're bringing data in and getting it out.
I'm going to go back to Paul for a moment and ask a little bit about independent software vendors and SIs that want to work with Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare. How do they get started on this program and leverage some of this technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what's really important here is we're trying to build features and capabilities into the cloud, Microsoft Cloud for a Healthcare platform across all of our clouds. So whether it's Azure, Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365 or Office 365, or the Power Platform, we're trying to build features in that provide out-of-the-box capabilities. That said, there's still a lot of opportunity for both ISVs and SIs to provide either solutions that are built on those capabilities as an ISV or as an SI. It may be a combination of that, as well as providing services around providing that comprehensive solution. So, a great example and something that I'm super passionate about is in the collaboration communication space. The virtual health, telehealth topic is a massive topic today, especially with COVID. There is a lot of capabilities in our core platforms, but we still need partners to either build telehealth solutions, end-to-end solutions on top of the platform, as well as SIs to actually take the platform and tailor it to a specific customer's needs. So just because we have a feature on the platform, doesn't mean necessarily that it's a shrink wrap solution. We still need our partners, and partners are key to our long-term success.
Excellent. And so if customers are thinking about the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare, Paul, is this something that offers differentiation from the existing technology they're using? How does it really relate with what customers are doing with their EHR system? Is it something to think about interacting with their EHR, sitting on top of their EHR? When one customer one of our attendees today said, is this the repository that stores all data across disparate EHR systems, or is it a single patient-owned entity? Talk about the basics a little bit.
Wow. Heather, as far as bringing all the data together, you're probably more of an expert in that space than I am. In terms of how it coexists with an EHR, again, just looking at the different features or capabilities, it actually allows you to extend some of the functionality that you may currently not be able to get in an EHR, or actually you're looking for a way to use information from the EHR, but to be able to do more across multiple systems. So, what we're finding, for a lot of customers is their EHR doesn't solve all their problems typically. And in a lot of customer examples too, they may have multiple EHRs or multiple instances of the same EHR where there's still some fragmentation that exists. And the beautiful thing about the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare is we can build and enable workflows and capabilities that sit on top of your existing investments and allow you to do things like, collect patient information, get a 360 view of the patient. This might be a great place for Edgar to jump into. I know we can talk a little bit more about that from a Dynamics perspective, but really extending the existing investments that you have Our intent is not to use the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare to replace EHRs. That is not where we're trying to go with the capabilities that we're building as Microsoft. So Edgar, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. So great points on every front there. Essentially, we're looking to wrap around the electronic medical record system. Frankly, electronic medical record systems aren't meant to be leveraged for patient outreach, garnering insights on patients, certain contact center or home health use cases and scenarios. That's where we leverage our business applications platform in conjunction with Teams and Azure to provide for those transactional use cases around the EHR. So don't look at this as an EHR replacement of sorts. That's not our aim. It's really more to wrap around and provide for those use cases that, frankly, EHRs aren't meant to solve for, but ultimately leverage that data that comes from the EMR and other data sources within a provider or payer organization to formulate that first longitudinal patient record or physician record, and then ultimately provide for transactional use cases or insights that can fold into those use cases.
Thanks a lot, Edgar. You know, one of the things, I'm going to keep you on the hook. One more question specifically to you is that comes up is about virtual care, because a lot of the care that's happening today, especially in a post-pandemic environment, we're working with physicians in one environment and that the patient is remote. Tell us a little bit about how we might be pulling data from those remote scenarios in the IoT space.
Yeah. So we've been working very close with our Azure counterparts on a remote patient monitoring solution. So essentially, what we're doing is leveraging components that already exist today. So Azure IoT Hub and the Azure IoMT connector, in order to pull in the telemetry from wearable devices or blood pressure cuffs, weight scales, whatever remote patient monitoring programs you may have. We're able to bring that data in, and what we've built leveraging the Power Platform is the ability to first register that device to a patient. So actually allocating that device, writing it to FHIR, so associating that device to the patient. And secondly, being able to spawn alerts based on thresholds that have been set within the business application solution. So for instance, if you've assigned a blood pressure cuff to a patient, and if that reading is above X for 2 days, go ahead and send an alert to an individual. We're providing the baseline and configuration to do that, so there won't be any true pre-canned alerts. This is not a mechanism that we would leverage for real-time heart monitors if someone were in a life or death type situation, but more in a setting of health coaches and individuals that are on a remote patient monitoring program, and being able to check in on those individuals if the health coach or care provider sees an exacerbation that's occurred, to remain proactive about a patient's care as opposed to the norm, which historically has been reactive. So at a high level, that's how we're leveraging both the Azure and business applications platform to provide for that remote patient monitoring solution.
That's great. Thank you. You know, I see a lot of questions coming up really about the difference between Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare and just Azure. Why do I need Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare? Why can't I just use Azure? Well, the good news is you can just use Azure. This is all built on Azure, and there are many different tools that you can deploy, and you can deploy what's needed for your ecosystem. What we've done with Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare is really pull in the tools and refine them specifically to make it easier for you to manage protected health information through the cloud. And while you can certainly build all of the technology yourself from scratch, we wanted to make it easier for you and put some of this technology into our first-party platform to save you time and save you money in investing in some of the development technology that we think everyone in healthcare is going to be using over the next several years. So we put that in, and you can literally deploy these tools and really start further down the stack and make sure that you're spending your tech dollars on the ones that are really developing innovation and customization for your ecosystem. And that's really a lot of what Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare is doing, is refining the tools for the use cases we know are going to be mainstream in healthcare. I want to talk about some of those scenarios as well, because those are really some of the power behind Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare and allows people to get started so rapidly. I want to answer the question that comes up a lot. What are the different scenarios that I can light up in the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare templates, and what do they cover? And I know both Paul and Edgar are probably jumping at the bit to jump into this one. Can you take us through some of the scenarios and some of the use cases?
Edgar, do you want to start with some of the features we just launched? You're on mute, Edgar, in April. So maybe around remote patient monitoring and some of the stuff we just launched.
Sure, absolutely. So what's being launched in the April timeframe is our new verticals or new solutions. So those two being remote patient monitoring, which, as mentioned, encompasses the ability to register a device to a patient, IOMT alerts, as well as the analytics and telemetry, which is one thing I forgot to mention. So actually being able to view the telemetry from a device. The next solution we're building is virtual clinics. So that encompasses three solutions. First, being able to book a virtual visit through our patient access portal, but also being able to perform registration and very lightweight consent, essentially consenting to join the virtual visit, and then also the ability to join that visit through that same portal. The other side of that is a model-driven app which can be folded into Microsoft Teams, which essentially provides a queuing mechanism as individual patients enter the queue either through an instant virtual visit or through a booked virtual visit. The healthcare team can actually view a list of those patients and directly join the visit with the patient. And lastly, being able to view the full patient view in the context of that visit. A few updates that we're making to our care management solution are some enhancements to our patient timeline. So we've made that much more usable. The ability to actually click into those events within the timeline to garner more information. Care team collaboration enhancements. So we've bolstered what was already there with respect to care team collaboration to provide a more usable interface, as well as the ability to associate care plans, as well as collaborate around a care plan amongst the care team. And lastly, the care plan tool. We've also enhanced that to incorporate the ability to actually templatize care plans. And I actually saw a question in the chat. We aren't necessarily providing content for those evidence rule-based care protocols and care plans. However, we're providing the mechanism to easily bring those into our solution. So that's much of why that particular solution was created during this iteration. Next, we've been working with our Remote Assist team, and they've folded the Remote Assist functionality into our home health or the field service mobile app. So as you're in the home with a patient leveraging the field service mobile app, you can directly perform a remote assist call, which allows you to make annotations. So if I'm in the home with a patient, I could actually phone a physician and actually leverage remote assist in order to allow the individual to make annotations during the call with the patient. And lastly, or two other things, Patient Service Center. So we've historically had the ability to schedule on our portal. We're now folding that functionality into our Patient Service Center solution. So directly within the confines of our contact center, Patient Service Center solution, you'll have the ability to schedule a patient for in-person or virtual visits. And lastly, we're leveraging an existing solution known as Relationship Assistant to provide a more healthcare specific solution, which is known as Health Assistant. Essentially, that will be able to flag any type of notification that would be needed for a care manager, such as, hey, we see this patient has missed their last 3 appointments. we see that they're overdue for a care plan. And that, since it leverages our relationship assistance solution, is completely configurable. So whatever types of assistance or notifications you would want to configure, you'd be able to do so. So that's it from what's actually coming in April. A lot of enhancements. So we hope that you get your hands on it soon and enjoy it.
And Edgar, just one thing I want to add, if for anyone that's on this call that didn't attend the session, there is a what's new in the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare. That was actually a session that was held previous to this session. If you weren't able to attend that session, I would encourage you to go and look at the recording, because all of the detail that Edgar just walked us through will be there, as well as the slides kind of highlighting that. And Edgar was also nice enough in that session to provide demos, so you can actually see what some of this stuff looks like that's coming out in April. So please, if you haven't had a chance, go back and watch that session.
Yeah, the demos are fantastic and really give you kind of hands-on visibility of how you can deploy these in your system. I do want to switch over a little bit and talk to the devs that are on the call today. A lot of questions coming in around how do I get started? Is there a sandbox available? How do I deploy the technology behind the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare? A lot of that does start with Fire. And so I'm actually going to ask Matt Jazz to jump in here and talk a little bit about deploying the Fire sandbox and getting started.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, so currently we do offer for example, for Azure API for Fire, we do offer sandbox environment. We publish everything on the GitHub, so you can go to our GitHub page, Azure API for Fire samples, and deploy the sandbox there. And we offer kind of end-to-end scenarios how you can test the service and integration with other components.
Awesome. And then I also want to ask a real quick question around social determinants in health. It came up quite a bit, and getting this data available for downstream AI technology. Can you tell us a little bit about connectivity into some of the other systems for bringing together different data sets once you bring data into the API for Fire, Matt Jazz?
So once you have the data in Azure API for Fire, you have several options how to get the data into other services, for example, to do the analytics and advanced machine learning. So through the export of the data to your storage account, you can then interconnect with the Synapse Analytics, or for example, use the data to transform it to the CDM format, and then connect it with, for example, Azure Machine Learning or with the Power BI. So you have a lot of options to actually get the data out of the service and then use it for various analytical tools.
Excellent. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about the pricing models and licensing and cost of how customers get started? I think you're on mute, Paul.
It's best to work with your account executive on what options are available and what you might need. A lot of it depends on the scenarios, the use cases, and the features that you're looking for. I would just recommend that you either work through a reseller, if you have a reseller, or your Microsoft account executive to get specific on pricing, because it also depends on what part of the country you're on and what currency it's in. So it does vary a bit.
Excellent. One question that's coming up is about, we keep getting a lot of questions about integration with EHRs. And so thinking about, does it work with Cerner? Does it work with Epic? Does it work with small EHRs or big EHRs? I think one thing that's important to talk a little bit about is kind of the benefit of using that underlying data structure as it connects through to the dynamic system and the power of that ecosystem. There are a lot of questions coming on specific EHR connectors. The good news is you don't have to have specific EHR connectors if you are working with the open source of Fire. So most of them can read Fire APIs in without having to do additional technology. If they have customized HL7 and have variant templates and whatnot. We do have open source technology like the Fire converter, which can take HL7 and map that directly to Fire. So you can take data in exchange between HL7 and Fire and send that out through a Fire API as well. So there's a lot of tools across the portfolio that allow you to work with the technology and deploy it very quickly.
And to add to that, I think one of the things there's some confusion around is we did launch a EHR connector for virtual visits. So just to be clear, that for Epic today, we have an EHR connector that allows you to schedule and actually join a virtual visit from within Epic's EHR. And so in that instance, we have a very prescriptive connector for those Epic customers that allows us to interoperate with Epic's scheduling system, as well as put a button in the EHR on the patient's record. So when the clinician is ready to actually conduct that virtual visit, they can basically click on that button and it will actually open the Teams meeting and allow them to do the virtual visit in the canvas of Teams. So that's kind of a very prescriptive use case versus what Heather's talking about. If you want something that's more all-encompassing that brings together a lot of other information, you're going to want to leverage those services. The EHR connectors that we're building for virtual visits are very specific to scheduling and conducting virtual visits and integrating with those respective EHRs.
Excellent. And I know one question that also comes up with relating to getting data in. I know Edgar talked a little bit about doing remote monitoring, and we talked about the virtual monitoring. Another tool that is important here is the IoMT mapper, the Internet of Medical Things mapper, that also works with this technology. So it can take the data from any device. I know in our question window, we've had a few about, does it work with Tyto Care? Does it work with a different device? The answer is yes, because we're using this open source. We've got a mapper that will actually take data coming off those devices, map it to the relevant Fire resources that you'd be using in remote care, and transform that, batch it, normalize it, put it in time series, and send that into a Fire repository. So that could be your EHR, that could be the API for Fire if you want to use cloud-based, and then all that data can go right through to the templates that we have in the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare to do some of these patient interactions. So it's really, as I said before, it's about making the process of what we know your tech teams have to build easier. We've tried to look at some of these pipelines that we know are common in healthcare and build them and integrate in with the compliance and the role-based access control and security that we need for protected health information to make your jobs easier as you build these development platforms for your care teams. So I think we're getting close to time. We just have a few more minutes here. Paul, are there any big questions that you want to highlight or wrap up with?
Yeah, so actually Jen answered one of the questions in the chat. Somebody asked how a partner can build on the healthcare cloud. And Jen actually in the chat published an answer to that. Partners basically can extend and build on the Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare. And there's a link that she provided for partners where you can go and click on that link. And that should provide you with more information as a partner on how you can engage and use these features and technologies in building your solutions out.
Excellent. Well, as we wrap up today, I know there's several more questions in the chat window. We do have experts behind the scenes who are going to continue to answer those for you. And we've got a couple other sessions throughout Ignite. But post-show, you can come back and watch this video because, again, it has been recorded. We also have a couple other resources that you can link to and continue to talk to the experts. Of course, all of our field teams and your account executives are trained in Microsoft Cloud for Healthcare and are eager to get going and show you how you can use different pieces of this technology in your health organizations. We can work with your dev teams or your C-suite, whoever it is that wants to learn more. So we really appreciate your time today. We hope this session was helpful and have a fantastic rest of show. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.